playoff pool, this was going to be right after the semifinals, and there was going to be more of that kind of a recap and then a little bit of peek ahead forward. I decided to wait a little bit for a number of reasons, some personal and some I just thought all of the narratives had kind of been talked about, and only one of the two games was really that great. So we'll do a little bit of that. Then we'll jump ahead to some Super Bowl stuff. Obviously, touch on some actual pool stuff to see where we're at, although I did not do all my math. Some of that's going to have to be on you. Either way, let's get going. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on the games of 2 weeks ago, but just to kind of quickly flash back to maybe remind us, remember in the NFC, the game was kind of meh just because it felt over. I mean, even though if you actually watched it, it was a little closer than the score dictated for most of it, and then it got a little bit out of control. Now, you can't really care that much if you're a Washington fan because, I mean, under Dan Snyder, they had more federal investigations than they did playoff wins. So the fact that they actually had a run was a clear surprise and a welcome one. You would have maybe liked a few moments in that last game where they felt like they were into it, but that's been kind of Philadelphia this season. We forget about just how dominant they've been in most of their games. I think the problem is when they're not, they're really not. Like when Hurts is going and the game is going to his game script, they can run the ball, things are going their way, they can play to their strengths. They look like literally probably the best team in the league. And just when they aren't, they just really look like they aren't. So the swing is a bit bigger. So far in these playoffs, though, they haven't really been tested that much. They've had a few kind of moments within each game that certainly could have gone either way. It's not like they're just walking away with them. But when you watch the game, at least for me, I never really felt like they were under threat at any point in time, and it just was kind of a matter of time, especially with Barkley and his explosive nature. He just can take anything and just turn it into a touchdown. So when you kind of have that big hitter, you don't usually get that and be a run team. Usually it's the grind it out. And since they kind of have both, they do get to live that best of both worlds, where Hurts isn't getting a lot of respect because he doesn't really need to throw that much at this stage. In the AFC, we kind of got more of the exact same thing that we've been getting for the last couple years. I would say, though, or at least I hope, the Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson choking in the playoff narrative is pretty much over. This year they didn't choke. In fact, both of them had the chance to win it. And if Andrews doesn't have those uncharacteristic mistakes, or if Kincaid decides to maybe catch the ball with his hands as opposed to his elbows, yes, it wasn't the easiest play in the world, and it wasn't as easy as Andrews, but you kind of have to make those plays if you want to beat Mahomes, and they didn't. But that's not necessarily the quarterback's fault. And I think even looking at the MVP race, there was no real bad call, whether you really think it's Allen or you really think it's Jackson. Obviously, for those who didn't see, it's clearly Allen won it. I think the only bad take, like I think Mina Kine said, is to assume that one is drastically better than the other. They both are great picks. But then here is the rub of the Super Bowl. Even though we've got two great young quarterbacks doing great things with their arms and their legs, taking teams like the Ravens and Bills and making them competitive the last couple of years, and I think there's this general understanding if Mahomes isn't there, then they probably each split in the last couple of years about which Super Bowls they tend to go to. But still, right now, with those two great talents, with the seasons that they had, if we had 2 minutes left on the clock and a team had to come back from behind, aren't you still picking Mahomes as your quarterback to do that? Even though the other two have given you more than enough reasons to trust them, it's just Mahomes is just Mahomes in it. And I think some people get frustrated. Obviously, people are making up all these narratives of all the plays, and they can cut and paste anything. I have a hard time seeing how it's this league-wide, conspiracy theory when the referee committees are always different, when the groupings are always different. I don't know. I know it's just when you really don't want to cheer for a team, you're going to find a million reasons not to do it. And I get it. Mahomes is actually not always that easy to cheer for. He doesn't always seem like he'd be the most likable off the I was going to say court, but you know what I'm saying, off the field. But they're already kind of in uncharted territory. As far as I know, in the Super Bowl era, we've never had a team return from winning two in a row and actually even make the Super Bowl in their third year. So they're already playing with house money themselves. And they're kind of at a point that if they don't win, I mean, if you line up both lineups, both starting lineups, Eagles and Chiefs, Eagles win the one-on-one in most of those positions. I think they're a far more talented team. It's just they're not more talented in the position that matters. And so if the Chiefs don't win and the Eagles do, it actually means a lot for the Eagles, for their legacy. Think of how many times Hurts has already been in the Super Bowl. He doesn't really get that much credit, but because it's more the team idea. And like I said, they bank on running, they bank on their strong defense, and so that's great. But if they win, I think there's a little bit of justification and certainly some job security for some of the people on the coaching side of things. If the Chiefs lose, again, they're still kind of the Chiefs. But if the Chiefs win, now all of a sudden they are the greatest team in the past however many years. And Philly almost looks like the whole season was a bust. It's a really weird feeling. I don't understand how, I was reading about it, and their coaching staff might flip if they win when I don't even know if they should be here. Anyway, it is definitely not the Super Bowl everybody wanted unless you happen to be a fan of either one of those teams. And even if you are, I don't know that you wouldn't have kind of preferred the other option coming through. We've done this before, not just the matchup, but we've seen these two teams. We've had the kind of Taylor Swift Super Bowl last year with Kelsey. We've seen Kelsey do amazing things in the playoffs. We've seen Mahomes do it a ton. So it kind of just feels like a rerun. I don't really know what the game's going to offer that could be any different than what we already know. I think the only thing that could be a little bit more potentially strategic, Chiefs are great at dinking and dunking right now, and I know the Eagles a couple years ago kind of made them do that. I don't know if that maybe you don't want to go the opposite way, take that away and see if Mahomes still has a couple big plays left in him, because I know Worthy could do it, but I don't know if that's not the best way to make this a more of a surprise game, because if we just stick to the game scripts, why would we assume it'd be any different than what we've already seen? Well, kind of crazy. Normally, we expect a lot more flip-flopping, but in this case, Kent has stayed on top the entire time, and now the real test comes in. Does he have enough legs to withstand it? So remember, top four do get in, so we can you can figure out exactly where things are at and number of points. You can go and take some of your own looks. But the biggest thing I can say is the two people that Kent has, our second place also has, plus AJ Brown. So effectively, Kent's just hoping for an under 4 performance for AJ Brown. But then Chainer has all three of those and Travis Kelce. So if Kelce can have a game, Chainer's still got a shot. Jim has already sent me the person. I'm not sharing with it until after the Super Bowl starts. I will put that in. And I will be probably watching it live here, even though that's 6:30 in the morning. So I will make that adjustment and send things out. So he obviously with 4 will have a chance, and he was able to at least read what other people have to see if he wanted someone unique or not. We have a few people down here with 4 that they're going to need a little bit more help, because I don't know if Ben with the 2 can make a crack into the top 4. Obviously my dogs as defending champions, they have 6. They've already made the move, so they already know what's going on there. And the biggest thing I think they have going for them there is they have a few more Chiefs than everybody else. So realistically, if the Chiefs have monster games, or the 3 that they have on the team have monster games, the dogs still technically have a shot, because they do have the rest of the Eagles covered. If we look down, there's still a couple people. Like I said, Jim's already going to use his. I'm going to use mine. I don't know if I've heard from James, Brian, or Bill yet, but they have until kickoff. They might as well make their move. Pretty interesting, though, the way it's going down. I'll let you kind of go on that one. Now, in terms of some of the stats, I know I always like to take a few. If you're just curious as to who may have been the best picks, I'll cover this after next week so you can finish. Currently, Daniels is the highest scoring quarterback, but my guess would be Hurts is going to score more than 4 and take that over. Will Mahomes be able to beat with another 26-plus performance? Would he end up being a top 3 quarterback, or is he going to let Allen and Lamar hang on to that one? In terms of running back, no surprise here. If you didn't have Saquon, and in one of my pools I didn't, which is why I'm not doing well, most people had him. Only a few that maybe thought the Eagles wouldn't make that run, but he is obviously the clear choice. Now, can Hunt have a big game and try and get caught up? He was the 4th highest scoring running back after the last round, but I think regardless, we're going to see. I think we know who the number 1 running back is going to be. Wide receiver, a bit more interesting because we have not had great wide receivers. McLaurin still being number 1, and he very well might finish number 1 unless Goddard has a massive game, or Worthy or Kelce have big games. Or I guess you could even throw in A.J. Brown. Smith, they would have to be monster games, but let's be honest, no wide receivers really had that much of a great game. A.J. Brown, 15 points last week was the highest scoring, and considering that was all but 2 of the points he had scored, that obviously his owners were pretty pumped about that. So yes, someone could come out, have a 3 touchdown performance and run away with it. It just hasn't really been a quarterback and wide receivers playoff run so far. But hey, Super Bowl, anything can happen. Well, this is going to be the second to last one, obviously. We have the post-Super Bowl. I'll make sure I put as much as I can in the emails. I know some people do watch this. Some might just fast forward through, and some just might read the email. So I'll make sure all the info's there. But all the payment stuff, I'll be getting in touch with. All that mess. All I know is we're a couple days left for the last football game of the season. We might as well enjoy it. I will send the follow-up at the end. So Best of luck to anyone who still hasn't even an outside chance. And if you got some other Super Bowl prop bets, best of luck on those as well.